of you, dear colleagues, and I will try to start. No. Okay. And well, briefly, I will divide my short talk on three parts. The first part will be a general historical introduction of the neurosciences in education and the work we have done here at the Pontifical Academy of Sciences in Education. And I must say that since this century, this academy has done enormous effort in education and the sciences, in particular the brain sciences and computing sciences. I have here a collection of the books that are here, and everything is online. The first thing is Education for the 21st Century, the working group in 2001. Pierre Lénard was organizing this meeting. Second, the Cultural Values of Sciences in 2002, where there are some chapters dedicated to education. Third, it is this work on the educator brain, and published by Fisher, Lénard, myself. And this was published also by Cambridge University Press. Had a great success, even in China. And this is important. This is a Chinese translation of a proceeding of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Quite a unique example of international collaboration. It was done by the University of Shanghai and the Teachers University of Shanghai. And I think that this is important because it was recommended by the government to all teachers of China as an important book, this Chinese translation. And this is another book, What is Real Knowledge About the Human Being, in 2006, with several chapters also dedicated to education. This is Human Neuroplasticity in Education, and this 2010, edited by Singer, Stanislas Dehaene, and myself. And this is also a book, a recent book, 2013, Neurosciences in the Human Person, New Perspective on Human Activities. And there is a recent book that will be published and is online already that we have done the meeting last year on breath and brain, education and poverty. And I'm very happy to say that the council yesterday had decided to organize a meeting on education and poverty, organized by Pierre Lénard and on education and poverty next year. Therefore, I think that our academy has done a magnificent work, and many of these chapters in these books are essential to understand the way neurosciences are interacting with education. In my own life, I started like a medical doctor in Buenos Aires, University of Buenos Aires, and my first work was neuroanatomy, human neuroanatomy, and I did work on a very tiny structure called the subfornical organ, like a very small, like pineal gland thing. And I was surprised and very much inspired by the work of Ramón y Cajal, the great Spanish neuroanatomist, who in a sense started the theory about the neurons. And Cajal said something interesting about the neurons and culture and cognition. I will read it. It's a metaphor that I keeping in mind. He said, it was in 1923. As the entomologist chasing butterflies of bright colors, my attention was seeking in the garden of gray matter those cells of delicate and elegant forms, the mysterious butterflies of the soul, whose fluttering wings would someday, who knows, enlighten the secret of mental life. Well, this is a metaphor, but metaphors can serve as models for sciences too. And therefore, I think that this century has seen an enormous revolution in what we call, in our book, neuroeducation. As far as I know, the first school or graduate career in neuroeducation was started at Harvard in the year 2000. It was the work of Howard Gardner and Kurt Fisher. They're called Mind, Brain, and Education. I was invited as a visiting professor there. I gave a course with Fisher on the educated brain. Fisher and Howard Gardner came here, Fisher several times. And what was important was that at that time, the brain and the neurosciences in general were not very much connected to the educational studies. Therefore, Harvard started that, and we organized an international society called Mind, Brain, Education that published a journal edited by Blackwell in England that is becoming one of the important journals on this movement. Also, I must say that in Latin America, with the help of the McDonald Foundation, led by John Brewer, we are organizing every year a very important meeting on neurosciences and education, and the next one will be in Chile, in Atacama. Well, Vicuña knows the place, Pierre Lena also because of the observatory there. We invite about 100 people, scientists, junior and seniors. We had another one in Calafate in the southern Argentina, in Recife, Brazil, and in Punta del Este recently. Therefore, the movement in every place, in every important university nowadays, is going towards converging interest of neuroscientists and educators. I would, in a sense, take the lesson from Joseph Murray. This is academician, good friend, was Nobel Prize in Medicine for the organ transplants, that he talked about the importance of clinical research. And I take his message in the sense that a worldwide message to educational scientists that research is just as significant as that of fundamental neurocognitive scientists, whose work forms, of course, the background of all advances. Therefore, I think that we need to go from the laboratory to the classroom. We really don't know how, but we are starting. During my lifetime, I have seen one breakthrough important, and this breakthrough in education was the introduction of computers in the classroom nowadays, in homes. And this took at least 20 years to be established. I remember a while when I was working with Jean Piaget, the great Swiss psychologist, that somebody there, one of our colleagues, Seymour Papert, who became a very famous professor at MIT in computer sciences, said to Piaget that children will be using computers. This was said in the years 59, the year 1960 something. It took 20 years to become a reality. The year that Piaget died in 1980, that's very year the first computer we introduced in the classrooms in Boston. And it took perhaps 20 years more into the internet in this century to do something similar with neuroimages. We are still not having neuroimages in the classroom, but we will have it soon. Therefore, this is second great breakthrough, in my opinion, in education. I will show you rapidly. The second part will be about, well, this is what I was telling you, the educated brain. And then I entered this very nice old drawing of Plato and Socrates. Look at this, very strange. Well, Socrates was the master, in a sense, the great master, and he was writing. And it's a pity that Professor Battro is not here to discuss why Socrates didn't left any written word, but certainly he wrote. And Plato is there looking over his shoulder, I think. And this is very interesting. The teacher and a student, in a sense, the teacher was Socrates, Plato was a student in this case. And we decided in the University of Buenos Aires to take seriously one of the dialogues of Socrates about geometry. He was, Meno, at the dialogue, he was telling Meno, his friend, that how could we teach? And he gave a lesson of geometry, which is still a landmark in the story of pedagogy, 2,400 years ago. And the question was to duplicate the area of a square. The slave was uneducated, without knowledge of geometry, and after 50 interactions, which are very well coded in this lesson, he arrived to the conclusion that in order to duplicate the small square that is up in the upper part, we just do a new square with the diagonal of the square, given square, this blue thing. And it was nice to do this research because the lesson was perfectly clear, were 50 questions and answers. Most of the time it was the teacher who was explaining, and the student answered mostly yes or no. I will not enter into details. We did many publishing, and the first is the Teaching and the Learning Brain, a cortical hemodynamic marker of teacher-student interactions in the Socratic dialogue, published in 2013. We did 5 papers on that. I will not enter into details. But what we have seen is that when we have, we have the student, and the lady there is the teacher, repeating the dialogue, and wearing 2 sensors, one on the teacher, the other the student, that are activated by changes in the oxygen of hemoglobin during the brain activities. And this near-infrared technology, what our friend from Japan knows very well, Hideaki Koizumi, and who provide many of these new optical topography technologies. They are wireless, they are very simple, and they're, even if they don't have a good temporal or spatial resolution, they are very helpful, I think, to be introduced in the classroom. And what we have seen is that there are two brains interacting, two persons and two brains. And I think that this kind of work will change our understanding of pedagogy, because we are entering into in a sense, in the activities of the brain of teaching and learning. By the way, it's very interesting that in education and neurosciences, we have enormous amount of information about the learning processing in education, about languages, about mathematics, about writing and reading skills, etc., etc. But we don't have, except this very first study, any images of the brain of the teacher. It's very strange. It's like the other side of the moon. We were working always in education from the learning side. I think because, for historical reason, as we know, animals learn, but animals don't teach. Therefore, many laboratories are working, making very impressive research in animal learning and human learning, even in baby learning. But nobody took care about the teaching abilities humans have. And I will ask, as a joke, I said the first human was a teacher, and a lady teacher, certainly. The first human was a teacher. This is the difference between an animal and a human, I think. Therefore, I want this in the discussion, we will look in more detail about that. But if, of course, I will not enter into the details of this experiment, which is quite interesting and complicated. But what we have seen is that most students today repeat the same errors the Meno slave did 2,400 years ago. And many of the students are university students. In order to duplicate a square, they start by doubling the side, and then they make 4 times the square, until they arrive to, imagine this, to the new square. Now we are planning to do the inverse operation, how to have the half of this square. That is a challenge for all of us, and we will do that. Piaget said that when we have a mental operation, we must organize the inverse of this mental operation in order to be stable. If you arrive, you understand how to duplicate, to double the size of a square, you should know how to half them. But it's not so clear. Try. And this year we are doing this with the brain of the teacher and the student. What we have seen is, and this I finished my talk about this introduction of the brain sciences, is that half of the students, all the students arrive to the right conclusion during the dialogue. But when we change, it's such a simple thing like the size of the given square, and we design another square of another size, half of the students failed to give a good answer, which is amazing. They couldn't make a universal statement. Only for this square, this method functioned. And we have seen that we could predict the outcome of this result and to divide the population of those who understood perfectly well the lesson, in order to apply that lesson in every other case, and those who didn't. And observing the way of their activity in the brain, it is highly correlated with those who could generalize with the activity of the teacher. The correlation is very high. Instead, is the contrary correlation is very low, or the negative correlation, when they cannot do this generalization. This is a thing that makes us introduce a very important element in the new pedagogies and the assessment of a knowledge. Perhaps we think we have a knowledge. We have ways to see that from the behavioral point. But if we go to the brain will not give a wrong answer. We will see perhaps someday in the brain if the person understood or not a problem. And for that, it is important, it's very important to do research on the teaching brain. Therefore, Professor Zikiki is not here, but I want to thank his generosity in his organization, Foundation Erice, the Center for Ettore Maggiorana Center for Scientific Culture. He gave us the possibility to study mind-brain education. Every year we have a meeting of about 1 week, and more than 200 people came in different years. We are celebrating 10 years next year about mind-brain education. And we decided to perform something new, that is to build a teaching brain consortium, a teaching international brain consortium, in order to start working with several brains, people teaching and learning at the same time, simultaneously. By the way, docendo discimus, when we teach, we learn. This is an old dictum. When we teach, we learn. And children teach. Children teach, but we don't know really how they do that. There are Professor Sidney Strauss from the University of Tel Aviv is a pioneer in this kind of studies. And we hope to introduce now on the neurosciences in order to understand how this development of the teaching brain in the children goes. And then I can go now to my last part about neuroplasticity, and telling a story, a very moving story of one of my students, Nico. We are there at Harvard. He was there perhaps 12 years old. I met him when he was 5 years old. But when I met him in my laboratory in Buenos Aires, I had this images of his brain. He was submitted to right hemispherectomy when he was 3 years old. Therefore, he has only half a brain. I wrote a book about him. And, well, it was very impressive. You can imagine he came to my laboratory. He was kind of hemiplegic. And he could speak very well. He was intelligent, and nobody knew how to introduce him into education and to school. And then I went to one of the schools in the place where I was living and told the director that I had a young boy with a half brain, but he wanted to go to school. And well, he said, okay, we will try. Nobody knew how to educate such a boy. There wasn't any in the literature, any signal of the pedagogy in this case, extreme case. And I understood that the most important thing was to give him a computer. And it changed
Professor
his life.
Battro,
Yes.
3 minutes, otherwise we won't have a discussion.
Sorry?
3 minutes?
3 minutes.
Otherwise.
Then, thank you. And then this was, and then he ended perfectly well in primary school, secondary school, and he walks and plays tennis, but now he decided to be doing fencing, sitting in a wheelchair in order to compete with other disabled people in Spain. And he became the champion in Spain of fencing, being a half-brain child, now a young man. And he also started making drawings. And the popular thing is that the right brain is taking care of the arts, and the left brain taking care of the reason. This is completely wrong. And with his left brain, he started to do very nice portraits. This is one of a group. And this is an auto self-portrait. Half of the face is Dorian Gray aging, and it's very important. And this, I asked him to give us the joy to have a butterfly of the soul, and in May, I made I gave this a picture as a gift to the Pope. Here I see Pope Francis holding this fantastic picture made by Nico. This is the end of the story, and very moving. And now, today, we think that we are starting certainly a new stage of education, because we have the possibility to introduce the neurosciences in pedagogy. This is all.
Thank you very much.